AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
Residents at Brightview Senior Living Communities enjoy enhanced possibilities, independence, and choice. Brightview Dulles Corner and Great Falls offer vibrant senior independent living, assisted living, and memory care services through various daily programs, chef-prepared meals, safety and security, transportation, resort-style amenities, and high-quality care. Take financial possession of your apartment by December 31st, 2025 and save. Discover more at brightviewseniorliving.com. Equal housing opportunity.
Hi, I'm Kit.
And I'm Rory.
And we're from the award-winning podcast, This Paranormal Life.
Every week, we investigate a different paranormal case.
On episode 387, we actually had Emma from Real Life Ghost Stories on the pod. Huge fan favourite episode.
Sorry, is that it?
I thought that was the whole investigation, was
so
this
he could
guy.
be German. We actually don't know.
He could be!
It was a great one, and we are also performing live across the UK and Ireland with our hilarious and terrifying live show, where we listen to real ghost stories submitted by the public, and they are insane.
I have to tell you something.
Dark hooded figure standing at the gate.
She insists I didn't see anything.
Brr, very spooky. We are coming to Glasgow, Manchester, Dublin, and London, starting on the 28th of October, running through Halloween.
It's a great way to celebrate Halloween, so get your costumes ready and grab a ticket at thisparanormallife.com/tour.
That's thisparanormallife.com/tour.
Hello and welcome to 31 Days of Terror 2025, and we are on day number 25, and I have two spooky stories for you today, and our first story comes from Courtney. I grew up in a small, quiet town in central Pennsylvania, the oldest town in my country, right along the Susquehanna River. The home I grew up in, where my mother had grown up before me, and where she and my father still live, was one of the oldest in my neighbourhood. According to the deed, which we were told was not the first or earliest deed, the house is at least 270 years old. There's a lot of history there, and I think many of the experiences my family and I have had can attest to that. I will write in a few times to cover all of my stories, or this episode will be several hours long. There is a lot. I will preface by saying that the majority of the things I've experienced were positive, some definitely familial, but there were some less comforting events that took place. I'll use this first submission as a little sample pack of both. I'll start with my favourite and most life-changing story. Trigger warning here for suicidal ideation. In my young teenage years, I had an issue with self-harm. At the time of this event, I was 14 years old, dating someone much older than me who had been deployed overseas in the army at the time, and he and I were not getting along. With the stress of one's first love combined with distance, danger and drama, I was hopeless and decided to take it out on myself. As I pulled my tool from the journal I had taped it in, suddenly every drawer in my dresser flew out, as if someone had yanked them all from their tracks and landed on top of each other about a foot away from the dresser. All at once, in one fell swoop. It was loud, jarring, and one would think that I should have been scared, but I wasn't. I stared at the stack of drawers for a moment and said, "Okay, I get it." I put the tool away and laid down to sleep. I was immediately calm, and as I closed my eyes, I felt the sensation of someone brushing my bangs away from my forehead, as though someone that loved me was trying to comfort me. I slept peacefully through the night, and never self-harmed again. I'm 30 now, and that night is still clear as day in my mind. I don't know if it was my family members that passed before me, our house ghosts, or a mixture of the two groups, but I am forever grateful that they were there that night. The second story I will tell is a bit less fun. As I said before, my mother grew up in that house. My bedroom was her childhood bedroom first. My mom and I are both a bit gifted when it comes to the paranormal, but her especially. She had her fair share of experiences in this bedroom, and eventually decided to use a Ouija board in her early teenage years. She never went into much detail. However, she has said on multiple occasions that she had seen green orbs flying in and out of the mirror affixed to the inside of the closet door. Interestingly enough, long before I had ever heard that story, I was terrified of my closet. I couldn't get over the feeling of someone watching me. I had to keep the door closed at all times, or cover it with a blanket if there were too many things strewn about to close it properly. I had all sorts of issues in that room. As I said, some positive, but not all. There were countless nights where I would be woken up to my bed shaking. Not just the feeling of vibrations as if one of our cats or our dog had jumped on it, but actually shaking, moving several inches back and forth while I was wide awake and screaming. I can still feel the reverberations of the bedposts grinding against the linoleum and my hands grasped tightly around the frame, trying to stop it somehow. I would run into my parents' bedroom and sleep on the floor, wailing about it through tears. My father wasn't one to entertain the paranormal. At the time. I'll get into that next. But they never made me feel crazy about it, even though I'm sure it was a bit frustrating for them. As you'll see in these stories, my parents were, and still are, my lighthouse. While the bed shaking was happening, I would sometimes hear a man and a woman talking or arguing in another language. Sometimes calm, other times as if they were fighting. My grandma told me later on that she and my pop-pop had bought the house from an Italian couple that did not speak English and weren't the most welcoming people. While they may not have been an easy presence, I don't think they were solely responsible for my fear of the closet. I still to this day don't know who or what it was, but I do know that my dad was the one to fix it. One day while I was at school, my dad set a timer on the loud computer speakers downstairs, went upstairs and shouted, "You've 20 minutes to do what you gotta do and then get your ass into that mirror. When that timer goes off, you're done. Stop fucking with my kid." The timer went off. He took the mirror out of my closet and placed it backwards in the attic facing the wall. When I got home from school that day, he asked me if anything seemed different about my bedroom. I guessed that he had changed the light bulb. It was brighter, lighter, easier to breathe. The darkness was gone. He revealed that he had removed the mirror, and my bed never shook again. None of us liked that mirror, though. It remains facing the wall inside the attic, but the rest of the attic is a lovely space, albeit full and resembling Box City these days. But I'll save the attic for my next submission. Speaking of my father, when he and my mom started dating, my mom was a tarot reader and very in tune with the spiritual realm. He asked her to stop practicing because he had been getting freaked out by all the events they went through. I'm trying to urge my mom to write in with her own stories. And things settled down until they bought the house for my grandparents. This event was years into the experiences at this home, so at this point it was nothing new to us. The house ghosts really liked to mess with him specifically. I imagine due to his reluctance to acknowledge the small everyday things directly in the way that my mom and I had. His belongings like deodorants or specific shirts would go missing, then turn up a few days later in an obvious place. He'd have cold water splashed onto his back while facing the warm shower, things like that. But one day in particular, he was laid off from his job due to snow, and after working on renovations to the house all day, he went upstairs for a nap. As he was laying in bed, every door upstairs opened and closed repeatedly, over and over and over again. He tried to ignore it, but eventually said, "Okay, that's enough, knock it off." And the door stopped moving. He saw a little blonde boy run into my little brother's room and behind the door, and heard a giggle, and then shut his door and finally took a nap. The boy was seen many times, by everyone except my little brother. We're a family of dark brunettes, so it's pretty difficult to mistake one of us for a small blonde boy in old-timey clothing. He used to wake up my mom by tugging on her hair and saying, "Mommy." We were told by a psychic that his dad hangs around too, trying to get him to cross over. None of us have seen anything of either the boy or his father in about a decade, so I hope they're off in a better place now. One more story regarding my dad before I stop for this entry, but I will be back with more. My dad is a very handy man. One of those, I can do it, I don't need help, caution to the wind types. My older brother spent every other weekend with us, and so my dad set off to make bunk beds for them. He set up shop in the basement, which was previously my pop-pop's dearly beloved workspace. As he cut and sawed and sanded the wood to construct the bunk beds, he had gotten some sawdust in his eye. He went upstairs to fish it out, and when he returned just minutes later, he found Pop-Pop's old safety glasses sitting right on top of the wood he had been working on. Like I said, my dad is a very caution to the wind type of man, so he set the glasses aside and continued on, noting that it was strange. My dad isn't always the most tidy, especially when it comes to his workspace. However, my Pop-Pop was. Pop-Pop always had everything in order, neat and tidy, labelled and organised. When my dad had finished for the day, he left everything out where it was when he had set it all down. Sawdust all over everything, towels thrown next to the can of wood stain, everything at random wherever he had placed it. The next morning, he went down to the basement to continue working. To his surprise, he found all the sawdust swept into a pile in the corner of the old cement floor, the towels folded neatly on the tool bench, pencils organised in a line, and the safety glasses right on top of the wood he had been working with. It certainly wasn't me, my mom, or my brothers. We didn't like going down there by ourselves. We all appreciated that this was yet another sign from my Pop-Pop, my mom's father, showing us that he is still checking in and looking out for us. Got a 270-year-old family home, is pretty old by American standards, so that is a house with a lot of history and emotional history and personal history. And what a lovely story your first story is, right? Like being 14 years old in a relationship with a much older person, which is, you know, problematic as it is. And then to be struggling with self-harm, going to self-harm and everything, all the drawers fly out of the dresser. Somebody is brushing your hair when you're instantly calm. I mean, it's lovely. And I feel like that's a really protective thing. You know, it's like definitive proof that something in the house is looking out for you. And that bedroom that, you know, you had when you were a child and was also your mother's childhood bedroom sounds absolutely terrifying. Like green orbs emerging from the closet mirror. Mirrors don't really freak me out. My bedroom is full of mirrors and, you know, they're all secondhand mirrors that I found in various charity shops and they never really bother me. But if I saw a green orb flying out of one of my mirrors, I would be frisbeeing that mirror straight out the window. And it's interesting that you would feel your bed shake violently and then hear people arguing in a foreign language that was potentially Italian. Almost like the energy of them rowing was causing the bed to shake. Do you know that energy that is like echoing over the years is causing a physical impact in the current world? And I just love your dad's intervention, you know what I mean? Setting a timer on the computer. That is a clear instruction with a clear time frame and a clear end. You get in the fucking mirror and then I'm putting you in the attic because I'm not having any more of this. And when the timer goes off, he followed through. And I'm a big fan of that. You know, I think everybody needs boundaries. Animals, humans, children, doesn't matter. Everybody needs boundaries. Apparently ghosts need boundaries too. And it's amazing that you came home and you were literally like, oh, did you change the light bulb because the room felt brighter and lighter? I think that is very cool. That is the power of a horror movie dad when it is wielded correctly. And it really does sound like, right, this little blonde boy who was knocking about the house was particularly interested in your dad, which makes sense, right? If his own dad was in the spirit realm or whatever, trying to encourage him to pass on, is it possible that this little blonde boy had attached to your dad in the real world as like a parental figure? Because all the stuff like splashing cold water, moving his stuff around, doors opening and closing, like all of that is very childish, isn't it? It's very like sweet kind of innocent behaviour. And I hope they did pass on. That, it would make me happy if they passed on. And I'm also very pleased that your Pop-Pop was like, use the safety glasses, okay? Leaving them on the bench. And then keep your space clean and organised. Love it. I'm a big fan of everybody in this story, to be honest, ghosts and humans alike. Today's episode is brought to you by Uncommon Goods. The holidays are fast approaching, and if there's one thing I love, it is buying gifts for people. Uncommon Goods makes holiday shopping stress-free and joyful, with thousands of one-of-a-kind gifts that you just can't find anywhere else. One of the things I saw on Uncommon Goods that I absolutely adored was the personalised runner's medal display and PR board. And if you've got a runner in your life, this is a gift that they will absolutely adore, because not only can they show off all of their medals, there is also a completely customizable board where they can write inspirational quotes. They can write what their next race is going to be and all of their own personal records. Uncommon Goods has something for everyone, from book lovers to history buffs, to diehard football fans, to foodies, mixologists, avid gardeners, you name it, you'll find thousands of gift ideas. And not only that, with every purchase you make at Uncommon Goods, they give back $1 to a non-profit partner of your choice. And so far, they have donated more than $3 million. So shop early, have fun, cross some names off your list today. To get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/ghost stories. That's uncommongoods.com/ghost stories for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods, we're all out of the ordinary.
Residents at Brightview Senior Living Communities enjoy enhanced possibilities, independence, and choice. Brightview Dulles Corner and Great Falls offer vibrant senior independent living, assisted living, and memory care services through various daily programs, chef-prepared meals, safety and security, transportation, resort-style amenities, and high-quality care. Take financial possession of your apartment by December 31st, 2025 and save. Discover more at brightviewseniorliving.com. Equal housing opportunity.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
AI had the time of my life. AI never felt this way before.
From building timelines to assigning the right people and even spotting risks across dozens of projects, Monday Sidekick knows your business, thinks ahead, and takes action. One click on the star and consider it done.
And I owe it all to you.
Try Monday Sidekick. AI you'll love to use on Monday.com.
You hired a new employee. Time to get to work, right? Not quite. First comes HR software for payroll and benefits. Then IT tools to manage devices and app access. And finance software for expenses. Oh, and none of these softwares work together. That's sad. Software as a disservice. Rippling lets you run HR, IT, and finance on one unified platform with automations that save time and connect your workflows. For a limited time, you can get 6 months of Rippling free when you sign up at rippling.com/podcast. That's RIPPLING.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
And our second story today comes from Sarah. I'll start with the obligatory, I'm not really a believer spiel. I've always been an atheist and never believed in any afterlife. Although as I got older and more interested in paranormal things, I suppose I've developed a slightly more open mind. There are things I've experienced and never really given much thought to being paranormal, but they have stuck with me all the same. And since listening to the other stories on this podcast, I've been more open to thinking about them again. One of my earliest memories is from when I must have been about 3 or 4. It was certainly before I went to school. Whether this is just a weird reaction of mine to normal development as a child, or if it is something relating to loss of an ability, I'm not certain, but it really stuck with me all the same. I remember being at the shops with my mum and looking at someone I didn't know at all. I was curious about her, I can't remember why now, and tried to reach out and read her mind. Now, I know there is a stage in child development where we realise we are in our own heads and separate from others' consciousness. But what I remember is this feeling of a barrier that wasn't there before, and a genuine feeling of panic and frustration that I couldn't do something that I felt I'd always been able to do quite easily. It suddenly felt I was hemmed into my own mind, whereas before I'd been able to let my consciousness roam. I'm not sure if this is a common thing to feel as we reach that stage in development, but I thought it was interesting all the same. All through my childhood, my favourite people, like so many of us, were my grandmothers. I was lucky to have 2 incredible ladies as grandmothers, and while I didn't see them often, as they both lived some way away from me and my parents, when we did see them, I adored spending time with them. My nana died when I was about 10 or 11. It was my first real experience of loss, and I was devastated. About a week after she passed, I had what I would class as a visitation dream, from what I've heard you say about them. It was a very different feeling to my normal dreams. I can't usually hold anything coherent together in dreams for any time at all, and I still remember it well, which is highly unlike me. She just sat there with me, held my hand and explained that she was going now, but that she loved me and would miss me, and please don't be sad because she was going to be absolutely fine. I remember waking up with a real feeling of peace, and whether that was just my mind trying to help me move on or whether she really did visit me, I'm still really glad I had that experience. When my grandma passed, I was 17. Now, I loved my nana dearly, but my grandma was my absolute favourite person in the whole world. She died really suddenly of a heart attack while sleeping in her own bed, which I am glad about, because she had a phobia of anything medical, and it would have been her worst nightmare to be in hospital for any time at all. We would often speak on the phone, but I hadn't spoken to her for a few days before she passed. 3 days after she passed, I was in school and going to a lesson when my voicemail notification popped up. This was the days before smartphones. I think I had one of those indestructible Nokias at this point. Usually voicemails would show straight away when they had been left. I called the voicemail number and heard Grandma saying, "Hi darling, I'll speak to you soon, everything's fine here, I love you." It was such a shock to hear her voice, knowing it was the last time I would. It was probably just a delayed voicemail message for some reason, but that was a bit weird, that it was the only time that had ever happened to me with that phone. I finished school and uni and started work as a doctor. Working as a junior doctor, you are often one of the few people moving around the hospital much at night. Nurses and HCAs are mainly on their wards at night, but as a junior doctor, you'll have patients all over the hospital in different wards on your service. And you'll go all over to people who need reviews or assessments. It's a really reduced staffing level at night, so you're often alone in the corridors between the wards. I was usually pretty distracted when moving around the hospital at night, either by how tired I felt or worrying about the patient I'd just been called to or what I'd just done with the last patient, and whether I was doing all the right things. This was between 15 and 20 years ago now, and supervision was less thorough than it is now. So most of the times I was going around the hospital, I just thought about work stuff. But there were some corridors that I was always super anxious about walking down for no visible reason. I never saw anything really, but some areas just had this really creepy vibe, and if I had to go there I'd sprint as fast as I could to the next ward without looking back. Sometimes the shadows looked wrong, but I knew if I looked or thought about it too hard I'd never be able to go back, and I still had a lot of night shifts there. The only time I heard anything I couldn't really explain was in a funeral home once I'd become a GP. Pre-COVID, the rule used to be that if anyone was being cremated, you had to go and examine their body in the funeral home. There was one I went to a few times, which was not really near anything else. The room where the bodies were kept was in a basement, and it was cold and windowless. On one occasion, I went with a male undertaker to examine a patient, and he had to step out for a moment, leaving me in there alone. You could see the whole room, and there were a couple of open coffins on the table. The wall of freezers containing the bodies, the body of my late patient on the table in front of me, and me. Nothing else, and nowhere anyone could be hidden. The basement room was up a path away from the main funeral home, and then down some stairs. There was no other office or anything nearby. I was doing my examination of the body and checking their ID when I heard a laugh. It was a woman's laugh and more of a quiet chuckle, and it sounded like it was inside the room with me, not coming from outside. It was really clear, but quiet. not the type of sound that carries. And there was nowhere for it to come in through, as there were no windows and the door was heavy and shut. There was definitely no one else in there. There was nothing else after that, but I got out of there as fast as I possibly could. Where I live now is a quiet little village in the Oxfordshire countryside. It's tiny, but has a lot of history. The manor there was in the Domesday Book, and in later years was owned by the Knights Templar. Our house only dates back to the 1980s, but it's only about 20 metres or so from part of the more modern manor house, which has been empty for years after failing to make money as a nursing home. There are a lot of windows on the modern extension of the listed manor house that overlook our house. We, my 3 children, my oldest son's girlfriend and I, have all seen things that could be faces in those windows, that are gone when we look again, but we try not to think about it. I suppose with all that history and all the older people who would have lived out the end of their lives there might be a few spirits hanging around. There are times when our giant schnauzer will absolutely refuse to go past the manor house, even though that's the way to his favourite walks. And when a stubborn giant schnauzer refuses to go somewhere, there is no way of making them. When he does that, I generally just go on a shorter walk with him the other way through the village. Just not in the mood for a walk? Maybe, although he's always pretty enthusiastic about it when we turn around and go the other way. Even if I could shift him when he decides this is not the way to go, I'm not about to ignore a dog's intuition. As far as we know, our house was built on the site of old stabling and outbuildings that belonged to the 16th century manor, but I haven't been able to find any details of the plans for the much older manor house that was there before the 16th century, and parts of it could easily have been where our house is now. On a few occasions, me and my son's girlfriend have seen someone who tends to be standing in the corner of our dining room. He seems to be a man in dark blue and grey clothes. We've never had any bad feelings from him, and he just seems to be curious about us. He'll watch us, but nothing else. Reading through all of this, I'm not sure why I thought I've never really experienced anything paranormal. I think a lot of these things could be chalked up to coincidence, tricks of the light and the power of suggestion. But maybe not all of them. Oh, I love it when stories start off with, I'm a skeptic, but... It's great. It's my favourite thing, and so many people do it, and they say I'm a skeptic, and then they've got all of these weird paranormal experiences. And it's really fun because what it does is it shows you that both things can be true at once. You can be skeptical and also have had experiences that you can't explain. You can be skeptical and also enjoy listening to stories of experiences that other people can't explain. And I loved the first story, this kind of like loss of connection. I think that's really fascinating because you can't say for certain, you know, whether or not prior to that you were able to, you know, read people's minds or whatever. Because obviously that just is something that would be part of your consciousness. So you wouldn't even know it was a weird thing to happen. And I think we talk about this a lot in the podcast, that it seems that children lose abilities as they grow up. You know, like kids often talk about, you know, imaginary friends and seeing things and past lives and memories that kind of don't make sense, but are objectively true about family history, you know, all of these things. And yet, as they get older, these things seem to disappear. And I wonder if it's, like, I know you're not saying kind of specifically children have this ability to read minds, but I think that children often have abilities that we don't even realise that they have, that they sort of lose as they get older because they realise their own consciousness, or they realise that other people don't have the same thing, so they just sort of shut it off. I don't really know. And I love a visitation dream. You know, it's like we always talk about. They do have a different quality. They feel different. I've had a couple of visitation dreams in my time, and they just feel different. I never have dreams like them. And I'm like you, Sarah, in that I have dreams and they're mad. I can barely thread the dream together when I wake up. Like, I often will have a dream and go, well, that was absolutely bonkers. And then I can only remember maybe like an image from the dream and nothing else. And then all of a sudden you have these really like lucid kind of comprehensive dreams that feel entirely different. And you know what? So what if it is only your brain trying to give you emotional closure? Who cares? Because I think it's a beautiful thing either way. And the voicemail one really gave me heebie-jeebies, because I remember those days of having the old Nokia phones, like Nokia 3210s, and 34, was it 3410 as well? I remember those days. And you would immediately, if someone left you a voicemail, you would immediately get a notification to say that someone had left you a voicemail. It wasn't something that came like 3 or 4 days later, because that would really defeat the purpose, of getting a voicemail. Oh, I think it's kind of beautiful. Again, yes, maybe it was a delayed message. Maybe, I don't know. I've never experienced that happening personally with voicemails, having grown up with old dumb phones, you know what I mean? I don't remember ever getting delayed voicemails. I think it's still a really beautiful thing to have happened, that she was able to leave you this message in some way. And I do love it when medical professionals write in, because first responders and medical professionals often have such strange experiences, and I can imagine what it must be like. Like, I've been in hospital overnight a number of times, so I know what it's like to be on a ward when it's dark and eerie and, vaguely terrifying. And I can imagine if you're bopping from corridor to corridor, that you get to know the place pretty intimately, and then all of a sudden you're having that sixth sense intuitive feeling that something is wrong. And that feeling is a very, very powerful thing. And look, right, I know I always go on and on about how, I'm not weird about dead bodies, which I'm not. I've seen many a dead body in my time. They don't freak me out. I would, however, be freaked out if I was doing post-mortem examinations and I heard somebody laugh in the room where there's only dead bodies, because it's one thing to hear bodies expel air, etc., which happens, but to hear the quiet, unmistakable woman's laugh in the windowless basement with all the bodies, no, I'd be out of there as quickly as possible, for sure. And I love the fact that you're still surrounded by energy in the house that you're in now, that has been there for, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and that your dog is sensing that energy in whatever way, and that other people in your house are seeing things too. It's a really fascinating thing, especially when you start off an email saying, hey, I'm really skeptical and I haven't had very many paranormal experiences, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I've had loads of weird shit happen to me. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Thank you to Courtney and Sarah for sending in your stories. Remember, if you would like to send in your story, you can do so by emailing it to reallifeghoststoriespodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out the website reallifeghoststoriespodcast.com. And if you are desperate for some extra content, you can subscribe to the Patreon. That is patreon.com/reallifeghoststories, where for $5 a month or for $2 a month, you can get access to heaps of extra content, as well as every single main and mini episode completely ad-free. And on that note, I shall see you next time.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.